Hey everyone, this is Dr. Drizzle, and welcome to the National Parks Expedition Challenge. Today we're at Biscayne National Park on Boca Chica Key in front of this amazing lighthouse. But even more amazing is our ranger friend, Ranger Carrie. Ranger Carrie, thank you so much for having us to your key.
We're so glad that you're here. Welcome to South Florida.
Well, we're going to talk about our journey getting to this actual key, but before we do that, how did you get into the national parks?
Well, Daisha, I studied science in college. My degree is in environmental studies. I always enjoyed being outdoors. And after I finished my degree, I worked for science camps and nature centers and eventually worked for state parks, and then met someone who was like, have you considered working for the National Park Service? And told me how to apply, and I applied and got my first summer seasonal job at Crater Lake National Park in Oregon. From there, I was able to work with several different national parks. Spent some time at Death Valley National Park, Acadia National Park, and Canyonlands National Park. And then in this year, 2021, my family and I were able to move here to South Florida to work at Biscayne.
So those are such different environments, like, you know, from this huge Death Valley with not a lot of water there to this amazing place that we're here. So what drew you here? What's special about Biscayne National Park?
Well, Biscayne has just some amazing things about it. So first of all, it's the largest of our marine national parks. So there's other parks that preserve marine areas, but Biscayne is the largest within our national park system, and over 95% of our park is underwater. So that leads to some interesting environments to explore. It gives us some wonderful ecosystems. This is a nursery for all the small fish that will eventually become the big fish that will be out in the larger ocean. But Biscayne also protects an amazing cultural history. People have been in this area for thousands of years. We find archaeological evidence of folks using this area for over 10,000 years.
So tell us a little bit about Boca Chica Key.
Sure. Boca Chica Key is it's part of our Florida Keys. This particular spot was developed by Mark Honeywell, and he had a beautiful estate here. He really enjoyed spending time here with his friends. He's the one who built the marina that we brought our boat to today, and who built the lighthouse that's right behind us. He was known for throwing some pretty lavish parties and would bring all kinds of wonderful things for people to do and enjoy. So yeah, this area, when this became a national park, this island became part of the national park in 1968, and then national park status in 1980.
We had some storm damage here from Hurricane Andrew, right?
Yes, yes. So South Florida is known for hurricanes that come through here, that form in the Atlantic Ocean and then come to shore. So yes, the structures were largely damaged and had to be what was left had to be taken down for safety reasons, but some of the structures did remain, including the lighthouse.
So as we continue on these keys, what other things are we going to find maybe for the next key over?
For the next key over, we like to focus a lot on some of the natural environments, kind of the mangrove forest and hardwood hammock forests, along with just being along the edge of the bay.
And the next, we're going to be going to
Elliott Key.
Elliott Key. And then is that the last key before in the national park system?
So south of Elliott Key is Adams Key, and then Porgy and Totten Keys, and then there are some other keys within our park boundary. Many of the keys are undeveloped and rather small, so some of them don't have any structures at all on them.
I read that the mangroves here are like pretty amazing because they're untouched. Like there's this long area. So can you tell us a little bit about the
Yes.
mangroves?
So the 5% of Biscayne that is land, there's a Biscayne protects a strip along the mainland shore in the area around our visitor center. So the mangroves there and then out on the Keys, so they help establish vegetation on the Keys. Their root system, especially the red mangroves, the roots reach down and out, and they're called the walking tree. As the tree grows and develops, it will send those roots out in front of it and continue to send new growth along those new roots.
And I read that that's a protection thing also. Those roots out there, they're sort of the first line of defense between what's happening.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, the mangroves definitely help stabilize the shoreline, and when those storms do come through, it provides some natural protection to the land in this area that would help them during the storms to kind of dig in and to not blow over during a storm.
What are we going to find here as far as animals like that would live near and around those mangroves?
Sure. The one that we often see quite a bit are several of our bird visitors. So we are there's amazing things. If you hear noises in the branches, that's always kind of your first, oh, what kind of bird is it? We do have a variety of lizards that are found here, sometimes the iguanas like we saw yesterday. But then as the mangroves that are close to the shore, the root systems, it's a tree that's able to tolerate having its roots in the salt water, and it makes this beautiful microhabitat at the root level. The dying leaves that fall down provide some nutrients for fish, for crabs, and then things like sponges, and they'll establish there at the roots and have this kind of unique place right at the roots where the roots are touching the ocean.
So if kids are looking to visit a national park in South Florida and they want to come to Biscayne, are we going to find crocodiles here? Alligators, crocodiles?
They're present in the area, but our sightings are not as frequent as some other South Florida parks. For example, Everglades and Big Cypress National Preserve. So we're a little too salty for those species to have this as their preferred habitat.
Which I'm okay with, because we came over on a boat, and although our amazing ranger did a great job getting us here, my fear was still that I would fall out into the water and be eaten by one of those things. But there's other things in the water that we could see. What else could we see in the water?
Sure. There's always the possibility to see some of the larger animals like manatees and dolphins. There are sharks, not the large ones. So again, I said this was kind of our nursery. So we would tend to see smaller sharks or nurse sharks. Those are possible in the bay. We've got several species of ray and then over 600 species of fish that are found in and around Biscayne Bay. So it's a really rich, wonderful. Oh, sea turtles! We didn't talk about sea turtles. That's also a possibility. Sometimes to see them swimming in the waters here.
And I've read that there's nests here on these keys.
Yes. The Florida Keys are quite rocky, but there are some what we call pocket beaches, just little areas where some of the sand has settled. And those are sought after as good nesting habitat. And we do have several locations. Our biologists are able to track those nest locations. They put out a wire cage to protect the known nest locations, and the nests are monitored to see what the nest success rate is. So we get some pretty good statistics every year on the number of nesting sites within Biscayne National Park and the possible number of hatchlings.
Okay. Mm-hmm. What would you consider to be the biggest challenge that you have here at Biscayne?
Wow. I think one that comes to our attention very frequently is our marine debris. Particularly, we were just talking about those turtle nesting locations. The nesting locations are on the ocean side of the Keys and the Gulf Stream contributes the way that it flows up through this area. Our beaches seem to catch marine debris, and some of it's from the United States, but a lot of it is from other countries around the world.
And I was very intrigued to see actually where those pieces come from. Like, it's not just one place. It's from everywhere. Now, you guys do beach cleanup days, right?
That's correct. Yeah, that's a one volunteer opportunity that our park really tries to make available to as many people as want to participate. But yes, removing that debris does help to restore that habitat for the nesting turtles.
Well, as you know, we always like to give our kids a challenge, something that they can learn from the national parks and then maybe take it back to their own community. So we're going to do that right now. Kids, we're going to be looking at goal number 12 for the UN Global Goals. Now, goal number 12 is all about sustainable practices, production, consumption, and how we need to take our waste and think of new ways that we can either reuse it, think about ways we can reduce it, or think about ways that we can recycle it. Because if we do that, there's a great possibility that that could lessen some of the marine debris that is coming up through the coastal waters to Biscayne National Park. So what we're going to ask you to do is participate in a social media campaign where you can reach out to your friends first, and then your families, and then the greater community to come up with just educating people on how to decide that first, we don't need everything that we get, and how can we get rid of things like single-use containers. So Biscayne would love for you to create some flyers, some posters, some public service announcements, maybe a jingle, a Snapchat, whatever you kids love to do, that will encourage people to quit littering by taking care of those 3 R's. And then what we're hoping is one of your campaigns we're going to send here to Biscayne, and maybe they will be able to use it to educate the people that are here. As you've noticed, there's boats that come around here, and these are not all National Park Service boats. Anybody can sail into this place. So how can we encourage them when you come in? Pack it out. We know if you take it in, take it back out. And if we can think about that, but not only just taking your trash away, but how can we reduce it before it even comes to that state? Do you think that would be helpful?
Definitely. I think the more people that are just taking that moment to think about how can I, maybe I could take my water bottle and fill it up instead of bringing a bunch of plastic water bottles on my trip. And you're right. It's a really an issue that we think about it just about every day.
Right. And the reason they're thinking about it all the time is because they're faced with it. Now, you may live in a community without these waterfronts, so maybe you don't see this, but I know you've seen people overflow trash cans in your school, or you may be at a city park or downtown and you see just trash on the ground. So what you create for Biscayne National Park can also help your community. There's some future park rangers out here, Ranger Carrie, like they're really getting into this idea of how they can create opportunities for themselves. What would you tell students that are thinking right now about a possible career in the national parks? What should they start preparing for? Go ahead and tell them.
Well, I would definitely recommend staying in school and doing as much learning as possible about our national parks and about topics that interest you. The awesome thing about the National Park Service is that there's a full range, some that protect some of our nation's history and special places, and then places that set aside beautiful chunks of land like Biscayne National Park that give us opportunities to see and explore the ocean. So do as much learning, as much reading as you can, and then a college degree is often an avenue that people take to start with the National Park Service. And I know several of the parks I've worked at, they'll have people that start off as a volunteer that get some experience that way, and then are able then eventually to work for the National Park Service. So good luck.
Yeah, so we hope to see you guys in the park. As we end up today, I want to remind you, when you create your social media campaigns, remember to tag me at Dacian92 and also tag Biscayne National Park, because they want to see what you create. We know that you guys are our future, but I would also say that you're our present. We need your ideas and your thinking out loud opportunities right now. Well, as we've listened to what you've said, this is a science park, but there's also a lot of history here, right? Mm-hmm. And I guess I want to know a little bit more about the history too. Great. Especially this lighthouse behind us, because I think that impacts the scientific part of this park.
Oh, definitely.
So do we have an expert in that field?
We do. I would encourage you to talk to Ranger Liz. She's got some good knowledge on that topic.
Well, let's bring Ranger Liz in now.
Okay.
So Ranger Liz, thank you for joining us. Ranger Carrie speaks very highly of your expertise in all things Biscayne. I noticed that a boat just came behind us, which reminds us we got here on a boat today.
Yes, you did.
You did very good with that. And you actually started a while back on those boats, right? Can you tell us a little bit about your journey to the park?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to speak with you. We've got such a gorgeous day here at Boca Chica Key. I did start here a while ago. I had just graduated from college, and I answered an ad in the local newspaper. They wanted somebody to work in the office for the boat tours. And so I came in, but because of some of my swimming experience, they said, no, you'll be better on the boats. And I said, okay, and I never looked back. I remember the first time I went snorkeling. I'd never snorkeled before, and I saw a nurse shark, and I was hooked from that day on. So that turned into some employment with the Park Service, seasonal work, which turned into permanent work, which turned into me being here with you today.
Well, we've talked a little bit with Ranger Carrie about some of the nature things we would see here, but let's go into the history a little bit. And two things, shipwrecks and Homestead Act. Let's talk about that.
Sure. Well, Ranger Carrie talked a little bit about how Biscayne National Park is 95% ocean. And so just beyond Boca Chica Key, where we are today, is the Atlantic Ocean. And so running north actually is the Gulf Stream. It's this powerful river of water. And ships have been traveling this Gulf Stream for hundreds of years. But they didn't always have great technology like we have today. And so they would try to navigate the shallow waters, and sometimes they were successful, sometimes they weren't. Sometimes they landed right up on the reef. And so that happened here in Biscayne, but all up and down the Keys as well. So today we've got a bunch of shipwrecks under the ocean, and 6 in particular that archaeologists have identified, and they're all marked as being part of Biscayne National Park's Maritime Heritage Trail. So you can snorkel, visitors with their own boats, or with our boat tours. You can snorkel or scuba dive on some of these sites. Most are in about 10 to 30 feet of water, and they represent at least 100 years of human history here in Biscayne National Park.
Well, how does that connect to other historical pieces here at the park?
Sure. Well, when those ships would wreck, these weren't just boats. Oftentimes these were big cargo ships. And so they would wreck on the reef, and they would have a lot of cargo on them. And of course, you needed to get the cargo off. And so there were folks that lived up and down the Keys, here in Biscayne National Park included, called wreckers. And we have one family here, they're called the Sweeting family, and they were homesteaders. But they were also wreckers. And so they applied to homestead here at Biscayne National Park. And they, instead of other places in the country where perhaps you would farm, apples or corn, to be able to improve that land to make it yours, they farmed pineapples, they farmed key limes, but they also looked around to the ocean for other sources of income, ways to make a living. And so they too were part of that wrecking community. So some of those ships that sank on the reef out there, they were helping to get those goods, and the people, the crew from the ships, off of the ships as well. We have a wonderful narrative that we have that we sell as a book, and it was written by a lady named Charlotte Needhawk, and she and her husband lived in a house on the north end of Elliott Key for several years, and she wrote down all of her memories in a book called Charlotte's Story. And so it tells about her and her husband's time on the island. She was not quite used to island life, so this was a big change for her. And so she wrote about rats in the rafters and about going down to the beach store. So today we talked about marine debris, right? And so we definitely want to reuse, reduce, and recycle. Well, she was a whiz at reusing and recycling what she found down on the shoreline. So she talks a lot about that. She talks about running into rum runners. She talks about running into all sorts of different people that came through there. They were helping to tend to Key Lime Grove on the north end of Elliott Key.
And had she not told that and wrote that down, those stories could be forgotten. So that's one of the things we're encouraging our students to do is learn how to take stories. Yes. Write down your own stories, listen to your grandparents, talk to relatives, get their stories down so we don't forget those.
Definitely.
Thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Of course, thank you for having me.
Thanks kids for joining us today for the National Parks Expedition Challenge. Thank you Ranger Liz for coming over. Thank you Ranger Carrie. She's fixing my lunch right now, which is really cool. Thanks Carrie, I need extra mustard please. We will see you next time with the National Parks Expedition Challenge. Bye-bye.